On Thanksgiving night, my mother-in-law Evelyn told me to set an extra place at the table. It was for her husband, who'd been dead for years. I kept my head down. Of course, Evelyn, I said. Tonight's all about a proper family reunion. Evelyn's eyes were glued to the slab of A5 Wagyu on the table. She swallowed hard, then turned to me with that familiar air of command. You don't deserve a single bite of beef this good, she sneered. Bring the charcoal hot pot to the table, and then get the hell out. Go make some money. We're having Sophia's boss over tonight. The sight of you is enough to make a person lose their appetite. I pressed my lips together. My wife Sophia's boss, Martin Peterson, was coming for dinner. Perfect. One big happy family sent off together. Sophia looked at me, her expression as cold as the November air outside. Honey, I'm out of that face mask ski-like and I need it for tonight. Could you run out and get some? She said. Go to the CVS down in the alley. It's $2 cheaper than the supermarket. See how frugal I am. I just saved you $2 whole. I lowered my gaze and gave a calm nod. My brother-in-law Daniel was lounging on the sofa, chain-smoking and basking in the glow of a recent Call of Duty Warzone victory. Hey, doormat, he yelled, agitated. I'm out of smokes. Go get me a pack while you're out. American Spirit Sky, the $45 carton. I feigned confusion, pretending I didn't know which ones he meant. Daniel cursed, calling me useless, and then sent me a text with a picture of the carton, adding a note to get them from the smoke shop on the corner. I sighed, a mask of disappointment on my face. It's a shame Lily won't be here, I said. Otherwise, it would have been a true family reunion. I carried the heavy charcoal hot pot to the dining table and then cracked open a window. Evelyn immediately let out a theatrical sneeze. You useless idiot. Are you trying to freeze me to death? It's about to snow out there. What are you doing opening a window? I put on a wounded expression. You're using a charcoal pot indoors without ventilation. You could get carbon monoxide poisoning. Sophia shot me a look of pure disdain. Are you wishing we were dead? You think we're stupid? We'll open it ourselves if we need to. Now go get the stuff. I kept my head bowed, my eyes catching the bottles of high-proof tequila lined up on the floor. After a few shots of that, they wouldn't notice a thing. I took a handful of millet seed from a bag and carefully scattered it on the outside windowsill. I'd been doing this every day for the last month. A small flock of sparrows had come to expect it. Daniel burst out laughing. My pathetic brother-in-law, you're a real saint, aren't you? Can barely feed yourself, and you're worried about feeding the damn birds. I glanced at the pot of soup simmering on the stove and reminded them again to watch the flame. None of the three bothered to answer me. I slid the windows shut, shrugged my shoulders, and walked to the front door. The moment I opened the door, I came face to face with our building's property manager, Martin Peterson. Martin was in his 40s with a greasy, self-satisfied look on his face. He eyed me with a mixture of challenge and contempt. I just lowered my head and shuffled past him. I pulled the apartment door shut, making sure it clicked. In my mind, a single thought echoed. Goodbye forever, Sophia. Down in the parking lot, I saw a few birds circling in the darkening sky. They chirped frantically, as if trying to tell a story. At the same time, from the corner of another building, I saw the gleam of two pairs of eyes belonging to a couple of stray cats. I lowered my head and walked away from the apartment complex, my face a blank mask. With double the insurance, their reunion tonight was all but guaranteed. I drive for Lyft to make ends meet. About 6 months ago, I picked up a late-night fare and saw Martin Peterson getting into my car with a woman. That woman was my wife, Sophia. I was wearing a mask, so she didn't recognize me. Through the whole ride, the two of them schemed about my two properties. A chill went down my spine. The apartment we were living in was my premarital property, solely in my name. After we got married, Sophia moved her mother, sister, and brother in with me. They ate my food, lived under my roof, and now they wanted to steal it from me. This was the woman I'd shared a bed with for 3 years. The other property was a house my father had left me, and I realized they were after that one too. From that moment on, I swore I would make Sophia and her entire family's lives a living hell. That night was the beginning. I was going to make them pay. It wasn't just about getting revenge on Sophia, but on that old witch, her mother Evelyn. Evelyn wasn't just cruel and vicious, she was rotten to the core. Before we got married, she was the one who demanded I pay off $100,000 of their family's debt. Right before we left for the courthouse, she demanded another $10,000 in cash for the pain of giving her daughter away. It bankrupted my family, but we scraped it all together to bring Sophia home. Evelyn took the money and stashed it all away, rubbing her hands together with glee like a disgusting horsefly. "This money is for your brother's future," she declared. "If anyone touches a dime of it, they'll have to deal with me. And your entire paycheck comes to me every month. I'll save it for you after the wedding." She couldn't stand the sight of me. Besides taking my salary, she openly tried to set Sophia up with rich men. But the worst part, the absolute worst, was that my recent health problems, the sickness, it was her. She was the one who had been poisoning me. If she didn't die, I would never know peace. Her son Daniel was a classic mama's boy. He looked harmless enough, but he had his mother's venom running through his veins. He did nothing but leech off us all day, playing video games. When he finally landed a job, he got Sophia drunk and tried to push her into his boss's hotel room to secure a promotion. I fought like hell to get Sophia out of there, only to have her scream at me. "Did you really think I was that drunk? You think a few drinks would be enough to take me down? If it wasn't for Daniel, you just had to stick your nose where it doesn't belong." Daniel, furious, punched me so hard I flew backward, then kicked me a few times while I was down. "You spineless loser. If you were worth anything, would I have to resort to this? Your dad's old house in the suburbs is about to be bought out by that new development, right? Every single cent of that buyout money goes to my mom, or I'll kill you." Speaking of the buyout, my father's death was on them, too. Sophia's older sister Lily was the one who caused it. In a twisted scheme to secure the buyout money, Lily actually tried to seduce my aging father, hoping to marry him. When my dad refused her, she spread vicious lies claiming he had assaulted her. The shock and rage of the false accusation caused my father to have a fatal cerebral hemorrhage. With no evidence, the matter was dropped. The property deed ended up in my hands. The whole family repeatedly pressured me to sign it over to Sophia, but with so much hatred in my heart, I would never grant them that wish. Sophia and Martin's plotting over my two properties involved one disgusting scheme after another. Luckily, I was prepared. Otherwise, I would have been wiped out long ago. Now it was my turn. I was sending them all to their family reunion in hell. I had been a meek, spineless coward for over 20 years. Tonight, I would have my revenge. I planned this for months. It had to be seamless, with no loose ends, no trace leading back to me. It required careful execution and bold assumptions. I was designing the perfect revenge, one that would leave me blameless. My wife was vain. I calculated her usage of that face mask, timing it so she would run out on this specific day. I'd forgotten to buy it several times before, all to set the stage for Thanksgiving. My mother-in-law loved to eat. Since Thanksgiving was the day, I pre-ordered the expensive Wagyu beef the day before. If anyone looked into it later, they'd see the actions of a dutiful, generous son-in-law. My brother-in-law was a chain smoker, needing at least 2 packs to get through a gaming session, but on Thanksgiving, I only left him one. The other would require him to send me out to create my alibi. To make sure my story was plausible, I even had Daniel text me a specific request, proving I had to go out of my way to that particular smoke shop for him. Even my sister-in-law Lily, lazy, greedy, and always hungry, was someone I counted on. A feast like this was something she would never miss. As for why I chose Thanksgiving for my revenge, there were 3 main reasons. Sophia would be entertaining Martin tonight. I wanted the 2 adulterous lovers to go to hell together. On a major holiday, everyone is home, using more electricity and gas. The probability of an accident would be statistically higher. I had been checking the weather forecast for a week. It predicted cold temperatures and rain, giving me the perfect excuse for them to demand I shut the window. The only thing I hadn't accounted for, the one variable I missed, was Lily. An hour before dinner, she found out some pop star she was obsessed with was doing a surprise show downtown. She was going to the concert instead of staying for dinner. It happened so suddenly that I had no plausible reason to convince her to stay. I could only watch quietly as she left. I lit the charcoal pot. The briquettes were slightly damp, which would make them release even more carbon monoxide as they burned. I had already put out the birdseed, which I had laced with an aromatic attractant. The birds loved it, and it made them sing. Their singing would attract the stray cats. I looked back at the 3 of them in the room, at their ugly, greedy faces, and felt my last shred of hesitation vanish under their contemptuous glares. I played the part of the obedient husband and left. Tonight, A spectacular fireworks display would erupt in their honor. I left my apartment and walked for 5 minutes to the CVS to buy my wife's face mask. The cashier chuckled and said I was a good husband. I smiled back and said, "When your wife is that beautiful, you have to spoil her." He gave me a thumbs up. I subtly noted the security camera above the register, feeling nothing. I paid with a sheepish grin on my face. I checked the time. Only 10 minutes had passed. The walk back would take about 5. After buying what Sophia wanted, I turned and walked in the opposite direction. Daniel needed his cigarettes. The air was cold and damp. Thick clouds blotted out the moon. A few sparse raindrops began to fall. I squinted slightly. The street camera on the corner had already captured me. Then I accidentally stepped on a loose piece of gravel. My feet went out from under me, and I tumbled spectacularly into a deep construction trench by the side of the road. I didn't fake it. The world spun, and a searing pain shot through my left ankle. I think it was broken. I had succeeded, but I suppressed the surge of joy and excitement, forcing myself to look panicked, clawing at the loose rocks on the edge of the trench. A chunk of dirt broke free, and I rolled deeper into an open sewer pipe at the bottom. It was dark, damp, and smelled of filth. I felt a warm trickle of blood on my forehead. Still, I managed to pull out my phone and check the time. 20 minutes had passed. I dropped the phone beside me, and the screen shattered. I stayed in the position I had fallen in, closed my eyes, and let my lips tremble. Images from the past few years flashed through my mind. My treacherous wife, my greedy mother-in-law, my arrogant brother-in-law, my cruel sister-in-law. Thanksgiving, a night for family reunions. Tonight, I was sending them to theirs. Every second stretched into an eternity. Even my breathing seemed to stop. It felt like a century had passed before I heard a muffled boom from the direction of my apartment. The ground shook, and loose dirt rained down on my face. An explosion. My lips trembled. A shock went through me. Did it work? What was happening back at the apartment? Tears streamed from my eyes. At that moment, I wanted desperately to climb out of that sewer and run back to see if those people were finally gone, but I forced myself to stay put, to remain unconscious, to wait for rescue. My mind was racing. Did I leave any clues? If the investigation was thorough, would the police find anything? I don't know how long I lay there. The cracked screen of my phone seemed to light up, and I heard the faint buzz of a vibration. I ignored it. An unconscious man doesn't answer his phone. More time passed, then suddenly a voice from above. "Hey, somebody call 911. There's a guy down here. He fell in the sewer." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I remained limp as they pulled me out and rushed me to the hospital. After they revived me, I woke up with my head and ankle wrapped in bandages. A doctor stood over me. "Ethan, you're lucky they found you when they did. If you'd been down there all night in this cold, well, you might not have made it. There was a big accident in your area tonight, a lot of casualties. I have to get back to the ICU next door." He paused. "Oh, and your phone kept ringing." I answered it. "A woman said she's on her way here." I put on a groggy, confused act. "How long until I can leave?" "My wife is waiting for her face mask." The doctor gave me a look filled with pity. "You won't be going anywhere for a while. You have a fractured ankle and a concussion. I don't think the face mask is a priority right now." Just then, I heard a frantic scream from the hallway. A moment later, my sister-in-law Lily burst into the room and slapped me hard across the face. The room spun. I cried out, "Lily, what are you doing here?" Her eyes were bloodshot. She slapped me again. "You worthless piece of trash. You killed my mom and my brother. I'm going to make you pay for this." I froze. It wasn't her words about her mother and brother that shocked me. It was the implication. Sophia wasn't dead. "What are you talking about? Evelyn and Daniel are dead? That's impossible. You're lying, right?" Lily collapsed onto the floor, sobbing and cursing my name. A nurse rushed in to calm her down. The doctor spoke softly. There was a gas explosion. Your mother-in-law and brother-in-law were killed instantly. Your wife and another man are in the ICU. We didn't want to tell you just yet. I went numb. Then, as if possessed, I threw off the blankets, scrambled out of bed, and half crawled, half ran to the ICU. Through the glass, I saw Sophia wrapped head to toe in white bandages, tubes running in and out of her body. In the next bed, Martin Peterson's lower body was gone. His breathing was shallow. I wanted to laugh, but I forced myself to wear a mask of grief. "Doctor, how is my wife?" The doctor, seeing my pathetic state, sighed. She has severe burns all over her body. She was also 2 months pregnant. I'm very sorry, but we couldn't save the baby. My lips trembled. The child wasn't mine. I pressed my face against the glass, my body racked with sobs. Sophia, I just went out to buy you a face mask. How did this happen? I regret it so much. What happened? I slid to the floor, a helpless, hysterical mess. The doctor sighed again. It's a miracle your wife and that man survived it all. They were in the bedroom, not the dining room. Otherwise, they would have been killed instantly. He paused, a flicker of confusion on his face, as if he was just realizing why my wife and another man were in the bedroom together. I pretended not to notice, my face a perfect picture of bewildered grief. Later, I took a taxi back to my apartment building. The entire area was cordoned off with yellow police tape. A crowd of neighbors stood around, murmuring. My floor was a blackened, charred wreck. The apartments above and below mine were vacant, so the only casualties were my family. I stumbled forward, trying to get home, but an officer stopped me. My voice trembled. I want to go home. What happened to my home? Why was there an explosion? What? I howled, collapsing to the ground and rolling in agony, ignoring the pain in my head and my ankle. Such a good man. Works himself to the bone, and this is what he gets. He was the best son-in-law. Now his whole family is gone. The neighbors whispered around me. For the last few years, they'd seen me do everything for that family. They saw a good man get the worst possible luck. His home gone, his family gone. Soon after, Lily and I were taken to the police station. A middle-aged detective led me into an interrogation room. His scrutinizing gaze made my skin crawl. We're very sorry for your loss, he began. Don't be nervous. We just have a few routine questions. I kept my head down, lost in my world of sorrow. The detective asked me why all the windows in the apartment were closed. A younger officer took notes. Their theory was clear. The windows were shut, the carbon monoxide levels rose, the family passed out. There was a power outage, and when someone lit a flame, the leaked gas exploded. My eyes widened in shock. Before I left, my mother-in-law said she was feeling sick and asked me to close the window. She said they'd open it later if they needed to. My wife told me they'd be careful. The mention of Sophia sent me into another fit of weeping. The detective's eyes narrowed slightly. Your neighbors told us you'd do all the cooking. There's a pot of soup still on the stove with a burner on. Why did you leave the house? I choked back a sob, my fists clenched. It was Thanksgiving. My wife had been craving hot pot, and my brother-in-law wanted chicken soup. I got the hot pot ready and put the soup on a simmer. Then my wife said she was out of her face mask and asked me to go buy some. I told them about the soup on the stove before I left. I thought they would turn it off. The police had likely already investigated the family's personalities and habits. My story of running out in the cold rain on Thanksgiving night to buy a face mask probably didn't even seem strange to them. The detective continued. The alcohol in the house was yours, wasn't it? It was very high proof. A little would be enough to make someone dizzy. I lowered my head, pretending to search my memory. My wife asked me to buy that. She saw it on TikTok and said it looked good. And since we were having a guest over, she said we should serve something nice. The detective nodded. They had probably already recovered the text messages between Sophia and me, which would corroborate my story. The real reason she wanted that tequila was because I had come home drunk one night and told her about it, and she'd said she wanted to try it. As for the hot pot, that was my setup too. For the past week, I had cooked nothing but stir-fries until they were sick of them. Then I made sure to watch a food show about hot pot on TV until their mouths were watering. What time did you leave the house last night? The detective asked. I frowned, feigning difficulty. Most people wouldn't remember such a detail. I'm not sure. Around 6, maybe? He nodded, then asked casually. After you bought the face mask, why did you take a different route? I knew they must have the security footage of my fall. If I hadn't changed my route, I wouldn't have had my accident. I would have returned home on time, discovered the gas leak, and prevented the tragedy. Tears streamed down my face. My brother-in-law asked me to buy him cigarettes. I don't smoke, so I don't know much about them. He told me to go to a specific store. He even sent me a text about it. My phone screen was shattered, but it still worked. I opened my messages and showed the detective the text from Daniel, American Spirit Sky. The smoke shop on the corner is the only place that has the real ones. The detective looked at it, nodded, and handed the phone back to me. They had everything. The security footage of my movements after I left the apartment, my text history with my family. This was just a formality. No one could possibly imagine that a person would orchestrate something so elaborate. The detective stood up and shook my hand. Thank you for your cooperation. Please accept our condolences. You're injured yourself, and you have to take care of your wife. We won't keep you any longer. I left the room and saw Lily in the hallway. Her face was pale, her eyes puffy from crying. You pathetic loser. You killed my mom and my brother, and you made Sophia lose the baby. You should be in hell. My voice choked with emotion. I'm sorry, Lily. It's all my fault. If only I had turned off the stove. If I hadn't made the hot pot. If I had just come back sooner. None of this would have happened. Lily pointed a shaking finger at me, screaming at the officers. Did you hear that? He admitted it. He killed my family. Arrest him. He's a murderer. This was his revenge. The middle-aged detective's eyes narrowed at the word revenge, but when he questioned Lily further, she couldn't provide any specifics, only sputtering incoherently and demanding they arrest me. Of course they didn't, but I knew they would probably dig deeper now. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. For now, it seemed my story was holding up. The police would investigate our family dynamics, but I had nothing to hide. Let them investigate. It was time to go back to the hospital to take care of my wife. After a week in the hospital, I had mostly recovered. Sophia was finally moved out of the ICU. She had severe burns all over her body, but was conscious. The doctor, however, shook his head and told me she had a massive infection and wouldn't last long. Martin Peterson was paralyzed from the waist down, destined to spend the rest of his life in a bed. Sophia knew her mother and brother were dead. She was too weak to cry, but tears constantly streamed from her eyes. I took her hand. Honey, they've already been cremated and buried. Don't be too sad. You need to rest and get better. It doesn't matter that the baby is gone. We can always have another one. Sophia's eyes shot wide open. She knew perfectly well that we hadn't been intimate in over 6 months. She saw the meaningful look in my eyes and flinched. There was no one else in the room, no cameras. I leaned in close to her ear and whispered, Honey, did you enjoy the tequila? How was the hot pot? Her pupils dilated in terror. Her voice was a raw, hoarse whisper. It was you did this. Somebody help me. He's a murderer. I let go of her hand just as a doctor rushed in. I turned to him, my voice filled with anguish. I'm sorry, Sophia. I was wrong. I regret everything. Please get better. I'll be right here with you always. Sophia's vitals started blaring alarms. She continued to scream hysterically until the doctor gave her a sedative. That night, Sophia woke up. There was a strange clarity in her eyes. The doctor shook his head. It was a last burst of energy. She wouldn't make it through the night. Ethan, she cried, struggling to sit up. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I love you. You're the one I love. There was nothing between me and Martin. I took her hand, tears welling in my own eyes. Honey, just focus on getting better. I'll make sure you get the best treatment. You have to believe me. While I put my mind to it, I can keep any living creature safe and sound. Sophia stared at me, confused. I continued softly. Look at the sparrows. I'm the one who kept them alive, aren't I? I fed them millet seed, and they kept coming back to our windowsill. I smiled faintly, and when the birds came, the stray cats had something to haunt. The cats would climb and jump all over the building, and eventually one of them snagged that old, frayed electrical wire, pulling it down. That's why the power went out. And when the power went out, your brother went looking for a candle. He lit a match, and boom. Silence. A terrifying, absolute silence. Sophia's breathing became ragged, her eyes flashing with a wild light. You're a monster. It took her a long time to force out the words. I gazed at the moon outside the window. Everyone has a little devil inside them, I said calmly. You're the ones who let mine out. I turned back, lowered my eyes, and took her hand again, pressing it against my cheek. My sweet wife, my darling Sophia. I heard Martin has a wife and a daughter. If you die, I think I'll try my best to win his daughter's heart. He never got to be your husband, so I'll just have to be his son-in-law. Eh? Sophia suddenly became agitated, her nails digging into the back of my hand, drawing blood. Ouch. Honey, you're hurting me, I said, my tone unchanged. I'm not finished. Your mom is dead, your brother is dead. You and your sister are the only heirs to their estate. You probably won't live through the night. You all had life insurance policies. Your sister and I are the beneficiaries. What if I married her? Then all her money would become my money, wouldn't it? Sophia bolted upright, staring at me, her eyes filled with pure terror. After a long, gasping breath, she spoke. So the face mask, my brother's cigarettes, the tequila we drank, the hot pot, the soup on the stove, it was all part of your plan from the beginning, wasn't it? I said nothing. I just watched her. She let out a bitter, rattling laugh and fell back against the pillows. You're horrifying, she whispered. In the next life, I'm staying far away from you. Sophia died with her eyes wide open. I cried as I saw her off at the cremation. Lily clawed at my face, screaming, while I just stared numbly at the rising smoke, feeling as if all the strength had been drained from my body. A few days later, the insurance company contacted me about processing the claims for my mother-in-law's family. I spent my days drinking, lost in grief, ignoring their calls. I was a man who had just lost the love of his life. I had no interest in anything else. I was in a hurry. Lily, however, was the beneficiary for Evelyn's and Daniel's policies. Was listed as Sophia. The beneficiary for Sophia's policy was me. With all three of them dead, as Sophia's legal spouse, I was entitled to everything. Buying that insurance was originally one of their schemes to get rid of me. After we married, they complained I didn't make enough money and constantly urged Sophia to divorce me to get half of my property. To facilitate the divorce, they had been secretly giving me medication to lower my sperm count. Luckily, I found out in time, or I would have been rendered sterile for life. After that, I secretly installed security cameras in the house and recorded everything. I had recordings of them discussing how to get me to leave with nothing and eventually how to kill me. From that moment on, I began to plan my revenge. First, they tried to hire someone to seduce me and get evidence of me cheating so they could blackmail me into giving up my assets. When that failed, they gave up. Next, they planned to poison me, making it look like an accident. That way, Sophia would inherit the apartment and my father's house, which was about to be bought out for a huge sum. They also considered staging an accident after taking out a massive life insurance policy on me, which would set them up for life. Sophia took me to the insurance agent herself. She bought a policy for me to secure our future. I was so moved I wept. Then I took out my own savings and bought policies for her and every member of her family. No one suspected a thing, and so the stage was set for my design. While I was out, they would gather and discuss how to stage my accidental death, looking up countless methods online. I gave them a thank you. Really. I learned the pros and cons of various murder techniques without ever having to search for them myself. While they were researching, I was watching the security footage. I never had to leave a digital footprint that could be traced back to me. In the age of big data, the police can track every website you visit, every search you make. I wasn't going to give them any evidence to find. I had noticed the frayed electrical wire near the windowsill weeks ago, and I had seen the stray cats playing there. The idea began to form. I had the method, but I needed a bulletproof alibi. The wire, the gas, Martin, Sophia, the sparrows, the cats. I spent a month thinking about it. Finally, I came up with a perfect alibi. What if the apartment filled with carbon monoxide and leaking gas, but at the exact same time, I was trapped in a sewer? I had a phone. I could have called for help, but what if I was unconscious and my phone was broken? Next, how to make sure they didn't notice the gas. A rainy day, an excuse to keep the windows closed. High-proof alcohol to cloud their judgment. A pot of soup filled to the brim, guaranteed to boil over and extinguish the flame on a gas stove. Enough stray cats to ensure one of them would eventually snag the wire. A lighter in my brother-in-law's hand, ready for when the power inevitably went out. I spent a month refining every link in the chain. When the day finally came, right before the explosion, I discreetly removed the hidden cameras I had installed, leaving no trace. The camera system itself was one Sophia had bought years ago to guard against burglars. It had been sitting and used at the bottom of a storage bin ever since. A few more days passed. The police called me in, saying the insurance company required an official report confirming the accidental deaths. The middle-aged detective looked at me with a strange expression in his eyes. When an accident is composed of too many coincidences and involves a multi-million-dollar insurance payout, it starts to look less like an accident. They had found the insurance policies and verified the details with the agent. Sophia had indeed bought a policy for me first, and I, moved by her gesture, had immediately bought policies for her entire family on the same day. The detective's eyes narrowed. You know that Sophia and Martin Peterson were not killed instantly because they were in a bedroom together, correct? I nodded. The doctor told me. I suppose they drank too much and went into the wrong room. Is there a problem? He pressed his lips together. We still have some questions. Were you aware that your wife and Martin were having an affair? I shook my head, my face a mask of ignorance. He continued. Why did you add spices to the millet seed you were feeding the birds? My heart skipped a beat. They were suspicious. It's been cold, I said. I was worried the birds wouldn't have enough energy, so I added some spices and nutrients to their food. He thought for a moment. The leftover charcoal in your kitchen was damp. What? I was prepared for this, but I feigned ignorance. It rained a few days ago. Maybe some water splashed on it. In truth, I had sprayed it with water myself. The detective then played a video on a monitor. It was the security footage of me falling into the trench. He pointed to the screen. When you went to buy the cigarettes, why did you fall right here? I put on a pained, frustrated expression. I was in a hurry to get home, so I was walking fast. I didn't see the loose rock on the ground. The detective said nothing, lost in thought. Finally, he told me not to leave town as they would need to question me again. I left the station feeling his eyes burning into my back. After the insurance was processed, I received the payouts for Evelyn, Daniel, and Sophia, a total of $10 million. Evelyn and Daniel's estate amounted to $500,000, which went to Lily. The insurance on my damaged apartment paid out another $1.5 million. Lily came to me, demanding the insurance money from her mother and brother. I burst into tears, grabbing her hands and falling to my knees. Lily, I miss Sophia so much. Please don't leave me. I'll give you all the money to stay with me. My father's property, everything I have, it'll all be yours. Let's still be a family. Lily was stunned. A shoot-in who spent all her time online, she had never been confessed to by a man in her life. A faint blush crept up her neck as she tried to pull her hand away. I clung to her, kneeling on the floor, begging her to marry me. Lily had nowhere to live. With her family gone, she couldn't even take care of herself. The thought of a place to live, of a weak-willed man she could easily control, and a newfound multi-million-dollar fortune was too much to resist. She actually agreed. I rented a new apartment, and we moved in together. I waited on her hand and foot, just like I always had. She repeatedly asked me to transfer the money and property to her name, but I always put her off, saying the funds hadn't cleared yet. I never bothered Mark's wife and daughter. What I said to Sophia was just a way to torture her in her final moments. The innocent should not be made to suffer. Besides, the most crucial reason was that if I had approached them, the police would have seen it as an act of revenge against Martin, which would have exposed me. Incidentally, Martin, paralyzed and disgraced after being found in my wife's bedroom, was promptly divorced by his wife, who left him to rot. He died a month later. The police didn't give up on me. They confiscated my phone, but of course, it was clean. There were no incriminating searches, no gas leak, no short circuit, no explosion, not a single keyword. With no leads on me, they turned their investigation to Evelyn, Daniel, and Sophia. After cracking their phones, the police discovered a shocking plot. Sophia had been cheating on me and was pregnant with Martin's child. Evelyn had been poisoning me. Daniel was planning to kill me. Lily had framed my father. All of their search histories, their plans to murder me for the insurance money, the police found everything. The investigation revealed a vicious plot by the entire family to kill me. If it weren't for the explosion, I would have been the one who ended up dead. Lily, as the only surviving conspirator, was arrested. Under intense questioning, she confessed to the entire family's persecution of me. She was eventually convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. Her sentence wasn't long, but given her complete inability to function in the world, she'd be helpless when she got out. I have plenty of time to play with her then. On the day of her sentencing, the middle-aged detective found me. He was out of uniform. He offered me a cigarette, his expression unreadable. So, what are your plans now? I watched the traffic flow by on the street and sighed. I want to find a place far away from here. Chop wood, raise horses, live a quiet, simple life. He lit my cigarette, his gaze distant. To each his own. Every family has its own problems. Live a good life from now on. Don't let bitterness consume you. The world has a way of balancing itself out. I didn't know what he was trying to say, and I knew better than to say too much. The less I spoke, the better. He gave me one last long look, nodded slowly, and walked away. Just before he disappeared in a crowd, I thought I heard him whisper, "You were the perfect victim, but not the perfect suspect." Right before you fell, you looked up at the security camera. Boom. My scalp went numb, my mind blank. I watched as the detective vanished into the sea of people.